Mm, Welcome to this session where we are going to be talking about income and how to handle taxes also, and why it's important to start talking about the income when we are organizing our money. So to do that, I'm gonna first share my screen. Um, so today we are gonna start talking about income. Income is basically what we have to use in our lives, right? Is the exactly financial resource that we can count on, and it can come from different ways, from our salaries, from help that we are receiving, for instance, from the government or NGOs or whoever is helping us financially, scholarships, things like that. Although scholarships probably just reduce one cost, we probably don't count it much as as an income itself. But there are some times that we actually receive cash money some way, and that is also a form of income, or maybe investments that we have, starting by a high yield savings account that's already an investment. So if we are receiving money for any way that we are using our savings, or other types of income that we can discover in our lives. So when we are organizing our money, the most important is that we use or analyze these incomes monthly. Why monthly is important? Because normally our most important expenses are monthly, like the rent or the insurances or all these type of things we pay monthly, right? So the idea is that the way that we organize our money also mirrors that flow that we normally have in our lives. And when we have extra income, we can analyze that as an extra money that we have. And we are going to have a whole session to talk about how to handle extra incomes or missing money. But that's later down the road in the program. So what we are going to talk today about is these incomes that are constant, even if that we can kind of count on them regularly, and that we can see them monthly, or that we can, for instance, if we have an income every 3 months, maybe we need to count it as three parts of that income for each month before the next big income. So everything that we have in different ways, we need to see it monthly, how much that's the money that we can count on in a monthly base. Um, and the point why this is the first thing that we should check also is because you will have to make a decision if certain calculations that will show how good you are managing your money, if you're gonna calculate them with your gross income or your net income. I strongly suggest using the net income as the base that we use as a reference, because it's the money that we can count on in reality. So how we calculate the net income? We check how much income we have, gross, it means without deductibles, and then we calculate deductibles, which are taxes or other type of deductibles, and then we get the net income. If you, for instance, have random income, as it happens with people that have businesses or that maybe don't have a monthly salary, what you do is to calculate the average or the minimum of the last 6 and 12 months. As you can see, what we talked in the previous session keeps showing here, and it's like there are different approaches, and we have to start deciding what feels better for us. Also, in the way that we organize money. So in my case, for instance, I prefer to work with the net income, and I prefer to, for instance, work in this case with the minimum income that I can expect every month, because for me it's better to have more than to have missing. But you will have to see how you wanna handle this. So the deductibles are basically the taxes. And here I just want to highlight that it's important that when you check your taxes, you check if what legal immigrant status you have, if you are a non-resident or a resident alien, resident citizen, for taxes purposes. And then you can use different resources that can help you to manage your taxes. In the case of the non-residents, spring tax, and in the case of the residents in different ways. TurboTax is a good tool, but we also have free tools that are the Vira, or even you can just file yourself the taxes if you can handle that, if you feel ready to handle that. But if you use the Vira service that is free, that is someone supporting you, just be careful if you have special circumstances, because not everyone there knows everything. So maybe you will need to double check that the person can actually support you in the way that you need. And the other way to, so this is in general, but the way that we can see how we are calculating our taxes, if we, because there are two cases, right? So with the taxes, the people who pay us can be taking those taxes away from us already, or we will need to save for those taxes. So the best way to work on this is, if you have this year, you expect a similar income and behavior, for you can just take as reference what happened in the past with your income and your taxes. If you are always covered and your incomes are not changing much, then maybe you can just take the past as reference. And if you are always covered, if you don't have to pay more than you are being deducted, then maybe you don't need to save anything else for taxes. But the other way, if you actually have a different context this year, you can use, for instance, artificial intelligence to make it better or easier for you to have a guidance. And you can just open the one that you like to use, for instance, ChatGPT or whichever you want, and you say, okay, this year I have this legal status in the immigrant level, and I have this type of incomes, and I expect more or less this, and this, and I live in this country, and I am from this country, if applicable, and that helped me calculate more or less how much of taxes I should be saving every month. And then you double check if that's similar to what you are being deducted or not, and then you can either ask for more deduction, or you can save that money, so that the moment that the taxes arrive, you actually have the money for that. The other type of deductions, it depends on your own process in life. It can be related to health, it can be related to retirement, it can be related to other type of topics that help us organize too. And then you have to take those into account. So you double check the taxes, you also double check um, the basic deductions, and also what else you're being deducted if applicable. And then you take that amount of deductibles from your gross income, and then you get the net income, which is what we are gonna be working with. Then whatever you need to save, is a good practice that whatever you need to save every month, you put a specific color for that. In the templates, in the digital templates, I use the blue ones, this blue, like shiny blue, for the things that I need to save monthly, because that helps me to every month just identify, oh, I need to be saving this for taxes, instead of having everything mixed in the budget. So that's a good practice. So if you are working in paper, I suggest that right now you choose which color you're gonna use for things that you need to save in a monthly base, and that's it for now. Um, how are you feeling? Like, am I being clear with all this so far, or you have any question?
You're being clear.
Okay, cool. So I wanna also spotlight the people who have variable income for a moment. I did research with some people that live with variable income. There were I was just following this qualitative research method where I talk with different personalities, different people, different characteristics, but the most important that they shared in common was that they are succeeding in life, and that they are in peace in their daily life, and that they don't have bad debts, as we will see in that session about the debts. So the conclusions were about people who is living in variable income, that is super important that if you are in this context, or you are gonna be in at some point, or you know someone that live with this type of income, is to understand the process that happens with variable income, and to try to breathe it, to really encourage your mindfulness, your capacity to experience uncertainty, to experience lows and ups in income. And that's, as we have said in the first session, is one of the soft skills of emotional regulation, and trust capacity, and also um, discipline to also be doing what we need to do, but without the anxiety, more with the calmness that brings doing our part, and also letting things flow after we have done what is in our hands, right? And also let the process grow. Also, if you have this and you are just starting, for instance, with a business, it's important that you give time for the process to grow, instead of depending or relying in something that is new, or that is in first stages of growth. Or if it's because it's about the way that you work with organizations, or the way that you work in life, just getting very, very, very good at being able to breathe in these contraction and expansions of the money flow when you have variable income. Surround yourself with align people and environments, which means like really choose people who is gonna help you live in this context better, with more peace, with more capacity, because it's way better to be doing what you need to do because you are responsible with your life, and hopefully because you love what you do, than because you need money, right? You need money is more anxiety, energy, whereas if you are in an encouraging environment, and you also get these abilities to let the money come through the best ways that you can do for yourself, then that's more peaceful and more aligned, and that's something to consider. The other key is to reframe variable, because variable doesn't mean little. Variable just means that it's not the same every month. So it's important to keep that in mind, and also to do all the psychological, energetic work to improve the mindset, and also to improve the know-how, because remember from the first session that money flows according to what is seen as valuable, what is valued, and how we show that something is valuable too. And the core in that is the know-how of what we are offering to the planet. Another important thing is, even if your income is variable, your expenses, many of your expenses are not. So it's important to be organized and be clear about your priorities, and remember that money is only one of your resources, but you also have time, knowledge, love, and listening capacity, creativity, so you can really know your money priorities. And maybe if you are in a moment that is important, also see how you can optimize all your resources together to optimize your money too. Super important to do the savings for job security, or for transitions, or for emergencies, as we will also see in the savings part. And as I said before, avoiding these bad debts that we will understand better later. Um, And in the bottom of everything, having faith in your self-leadership and your resourcefulness and the way that life actually loves you and take care of you. So let's do our first practice. For this first part, we need papers and colors and pens, and you're saving color if you're working in paper, or if you're working in the digital version, you can use this QR code here or this link to, to create a copy. I'm gonna just show how to do that. So if you come to the digital copy, you're gonna see this template. The way that you create your copy is going to file and you make a copy, and then you put the name for you for your budget, and then you work in that copy. Once you have your own copy, today we are going to be working on the section of the income that is in the context session. Okay. And for the people who is with the papers, just put the title income and let's start. So what we are gonna do is calculate your taxes. As I said before, if you don't know them, you can try to Google them or using artificial intelligence or all the other ways that I mentioned. Double check your other deductibles, and then calculate your net income. The idea is that before moving forward, you have clarity of what is your net income. Um, Erling, do you know your net income?
Yes.
Okay, so we can move forward, and if you can just type it out in your paper, and if someone is seeing this recorded and is working in the digital version, you can put your incomes here, your gross income, calculate your deductibles or these things, and then you can put here your net income. If you have to save something extra, then you will have your true, like let's put here like your true net income. And this is the one that we will be working on. And what you just saw that I did, like changing something, is what I expect you to do. This version is like the version number 7 of this budget, because every time that I realize that something can be more optimized or that is better another name, I just come and change it. So it's your budget, so put the names that you like, put the colors that you like, just make it your own. And that's why you make a copy if you're using the digital, or you have your papers and your own colors and everything for the written one. And then from what we have talked so far, if you identify already something that maybe you need to work on in your mindset or your know-how, just type it out too. And let me know when you're ready. So if you are in a household, remember that you will need to decide if you are gonna take the household money as a whole household money, or if you are gonna pay by percentage of income, which are the two best practices for household income. So for doing that, here we are gonna use the gross income. So what we do is to calculate the gross income, because we don't know if the deductibles are being fair between the same incomes. Maybe one person is getting health insurance and is getting retirement deductibles, whereas the other person is not. So if we compare net incomes, we could be being unfair. So what we want is to be fair. So only in this case, we are going to use the gross income as the reference. And what you are gonna do is to add all the incomes in the house or in the couple or in the household or however you are organized in your um, household life. You add all the incomes and then you take your own gross income and you calculate, let's put here the gross just for being super clear. You take your gross income and then you see how much it represents in the house and you just get how much percent. So if you are earning more or less the same, you're gonna arrive to a 50-50%. But if somebody is getting less gross income, then you are gonna identify the proportions. So let's make an example, maybe it's better. Um, so let's say that a person is earning $5,000 as income, person one in the household, and the other is earning 2,000 uh, gross, person two. So if we check how much is that together, we will have, let's make it more clear, we will have income one, income two, right? And then that would be a total household income. So if we were doing the household budget as a household income, this is the gross that we would use as reference, but then we will have to calculate deductibles and taxes. And then, for instance, the person one is getting deducted, I don't know, $2,000, and then person two is getting deducted 800. So the net, and let's assume that they don't need to save anything extra. But if you do, you know that you have to calculate your true net income. So what we are gonna do is check, let's put here the assumption, so extra deductibles necessary. So we are assuming that we don't have any extra deductibles necessary. And then we are gonna say, okay, the gross minus the deductibles minus extra deductibles through net income. And so this would be in the first case 3,000, in the second would be the same. The gross minus the deductibles minus the extra deductibles, and that will give us the true net income of this person. So the gross is this, right? But the net would be the true nets. So if we are working as a household, this true net would be the household income. But if we are working individually in the household, then our reference is going to be the gross, but then we would need to see how much it represents in the total gross. So in this case would be the 5,000 of the person one divided in the total gross income, and this is 71%. And then we do the same for the other person, but here we do the 2,000 divided in the splitting the gross income. And then we would see, okay, if these people is gonna work independently on their budgets, they need to take in account that the most fair way to pay for things that are shared, even if it's for fun or for needs or for anything that is shared, is that the person one pays 71% of the things and that person two pays 29% of the things. Whereas that is if it's the net, the household income, this case is household income option, or in this case as per person. Here we would see, okay, this is the total income, and then we start deciding what is for what, and then we also take one part for individual fund and expenses and savings, but equally parts. So these are the two ways to make it fair when we are in a household. And this is where I want you to stop the process here if you're seeing recorded this. and do your exercise to calculate and decide in your household what is the most fair and practical way to do it in the way that your household works as a family. And if you don't like any of these approaches, then think which one would be the most lovely and fair one for a household and a family. Erling, do you have do you need time to do this part, or you're set?
I'm good. I'm keeping up.
Okay. And why is important that we have this clear before we move forward? Because budgeting has something that is like a fundamental logic. Some experts in the topics of personal finances and family finances talk about these as mandatory. Uh, Other people ignore it completely. I am more in the middle ground on this, and is take it as a reference, which is this. Maybe you have heard that there is like the 50-30, what is it, 50-20-30 rule, for instance, or there are other rules out there. But in reality, what it shows is how much percentage of our available income we are using for certain types of categories. So basically, we just saw that we have two parts. We have the income, and then we have how we use the money. In the income part, we have the gross income, as we just discussed. Then we have the deductions, and then we have the available income, as we just explained it, right? But then you will have that money available to use in three type of things: your needs, your savings, and your enjoyment. So these rules basically say how much you should spend on these things. So it's a good practice that more or less you are using up to 50-60% in needs, including debts, hopefully. But if you are in another context, that's okay. This is just a reference. That you are saving around 20% of your income. If you want more, that's great, but just keep in mind that you are not sacrificing a lot enjoyment on that. But if you are in a hard time and you cannot save more, at least saving 5 or 10% of your income. If you are in a very difficult moment, at least saving $1, whatever you can save, that is helpful. But these are kind of good practices. And the other is that you have enjoyment around 20-30%, at least 1% also. If no savings and no enjoyment, is not a good budget. We still need to put something to enjoy and something to save, even if it's just a little. That's a better practice, because then we are strengthening a muscle that is important for our present and our future, as we saw in the first session. When we have this clear as a guidance, then there are some aspects to it that are important. So in the basic needs that we will see more in depth in the next session, there are two other guidance that are important, and is that maximum 30% of your income um, is going to housing expenses, and that you are also saving for personal growth. We are people that always need to grow, and for instance, learning financial skills, or growing in emotional management, or in communication, or in leadership, or in so many things. So it's important to keep some part of the budget. It's a good practice around 3% for what I have searched. But if you can less, it's okay. If you are using just free resources, that's okay. It's a way to optimize, and it's a way to receive what you need in your way. As far as you are taking it on mind, that's the most important. For the savings, as we were saying, at least 5% should be saved, and this is basically for emergencies. We need to really work on having a cushioning for any unexpected need that can come, and that's also a way to avoid bad debts and avoid financial anxiety. But it's super important that we really work on what is an expected need and what is an unexpected need. So things that, as always say, my glasses, for instance, is something that I buy every 1 or 2 years, but that's expected. So I should plan for that, right? So we really need to identify how much we need to save monthly for things that are actually expected, so that we use emergency savings for truly unexpected things. And if we have an unexpected need, that we realize that we should plan, then we put it in the budget and we start planning ahead. We use one time for emergency or unexpected, but then we start planning for that, so that we are really clean with what is the emergency funds for. And then we have the enjoyment. And here I also like to split at least in two, but actually in three process, and is 1/3 of your joy for the present, for your coffees, for your meals outside, for whatever you want in the daily base, or weekly base life. Then save for your future fun, like trips, celebrations, things like that. And if you can, a third one would be for something that I call magic, and it's like enjoyment money that we don't have a specific purpose for, but it's for something special. So imagine, for instance, that you are saving for a car, and then um, there is a there are some features that you don't really need, but you would like to have. So maybe you can use your magic money for that. It's like this inner magic that makes things special for you. Or maybe there is something very, very nice that you need to experience or that you want to give someone. Maybe you have that money for that. So this third part would be for that if you resonate. If you not, at least split in future and present fun. Enjoy. Okay, so the idea is that after we do the whole budgeting process, and we also talk about debts, and we also talk about savings, and we talk about everything in depth, we are gonna calculate these things in the end, and we are gonna see how are these percentages and how we feel about them, to see if we feel good with our percentages, or if we need to organize better our expenses and savings and things like that. So the exercise that I want you to do before we dive into the whole depth of this is bet your percentages. So with what you have in your mind about your money, how much you think that you are spending in these things, in basic needs, in savings, and in enjoyment. Can you try to do that? You can put it in the chat if you want to share it with me.
I prefer not to share my numbers.
Mhm. But you are writing them for you.
Yes.
Okay, let me know when you finish your bets. I bet that I spend. When I was a student, for instance, doing my doctorate program, basically like 80% no, like 90% of my income was going to basic needs and debts. So I was like saving like 5% and using like 5% for enjoyment. But that really helped me to leave the program without debts. I remember that I graduated, and I joke like my balance is like $1. But
I will say that I know that mine is a bit out of whack, meaning that I put a little too much in the enjoyment percentage.
okay, so now you already have a thing that you would like to consider, and the way to consider those things is like if you feel, because it's a feeling, right? I feel that it's too much. So this extra much, where would feel great to put, right? And maybe the exercise of the budgeting is gonna be a very nice process to do that. But also like, oh, I would feel better saving, or maybe I can put it in magic for now. and then I decide what to do with that, So thank you for that. Okay, we are cool until now.
Yes.
And then we have ways to optimize our income. There are different ways. For instance, accessing support, like if we have income-based discounts or services. And here I want to really highlight, I have seen a lot of people that I have worked one-on-one. Sometimes people feel bad by using services or programs that are created and that they fall in the target population because they feel that they are not as bad as other people and they feel that maybe they are taking away resources that other people would need more. But sometimes we are also transitioning and we also need them. So my invitation is let that decision to the people who is managing the programs. If you fall into the target population, it's because you are for that program. So if you feel that that will help you, let life help you. There are other programs that actually expand the savings and is, for instance, programs like the IDAs, individual development accounts, is where you put, for instance, some savings and they during a schedule months, 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, things like that. You put your savings there and then they multiply those savings by 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. It's not it's not very easy to get benefits like this, but there are programs out there. So, for instance, you can join the waiting list and see if you get randomly selected or things like that, and that would be extra things. But if we don't even join the list, we for sure won't have things like that happening in our lives. So access support. If you see there is a link here, and it's because in the digital version, but I'm gonna share it also in the email. There is something happening here, but if you see where we go to the budget part, there is a budget resource that is gonna open and it will have links of programs that I know so far that can help you optimize your budget. This is gonna be ready for the next session. So right now you cannot really see much there, but I'm gonna um, provide the link when it's ready, especially after the next session where we are gonna dive into the budgeting because I want you to understand how is organized this support resources page. But the invitation is if you ever get knowledge about resources that are not listed there and could be beneficial for the community, just put it in a comment in that document and I will update it if that's the case. The other way is check your income, check where you work, what benefits you actually can have through your job and use them. Like if you have personal time or if you have, for instance, in my job, I had the option to open a retirement account and they would match like double whatever I put in the account. So that's super winning. It's like doubling your savings for your retirement. That's a great benefit. And I didn't use it for a year because I was scared that I wouldn't know how to manage the system. So I had to get the self-discipline and the self-leadership to understand how the account worked and opening that because that was a benefit that I wasn't using and that is very good for my future. So really check what are your benefits. Normally they gave a welcome package or just check with HR or in the way that you have your contracts or your incomes going on and use your benefits. Optimize your benefits and be fair with yourself in the process. Um, Especially considering that the job market is better than in the past, but not yet in the most optimum way, considering working hours and considering benefits and all these things. So really, really reflect on that and see the way that you can actually optimize and be fair with yourself with your work activities. And is known that you can actually negotiate your salary, but you can also check new jobs to get better salaries. So you can see what is best for you. And if you feel that you're scared or something like that, that's another thing that we could work in the psychological level to really get ready to negotiate a salary or to get a new job, a new salary, or a new source of income. Eh, Another good practice is really return anything that you buy by mistake. This is the most practical therapy that I have done so far. Because at the fifth time that you are returning things, you get tired of that and you prevent more those things. So anything that is bought by mistake, good practice to just return it. Sell unused products instead of piling up, accumulating things. It's better to um, exchange it and um, move the resources. Build your self love, your confidence, so that you can actually do all these things. And remember always that money is not your only resource, so you don't need to be paying everything yourself and paying everything, paying for everything. You can also trade, you can also work it's open yourself to magic. I'm gonna just give an example. For instance, I needed like a key ring the other day, and I didn't want to spend the time looking for it, and I didn't want to spend money on that. And I just said, I know that I felt it, and I said like I know I'm gonna find on the street one. And like 2 days later, I was in a gathering outdoors, and I just looked at the floor, and there was a key ring. So open yourself for magic to happen, you know. It can also happen. And allow yourself to receive also, allow yourself to receive either money, services, company, um, whatever is out there for you. And some people feel also that they would like to open a business, or in my case, for instance, I am considering more like a hobby business. Is the way that I call it. Like it's a hobby, but maybe you can monetize some things, but it's not like a full business commitment um, in the level that you feel it. Because a hobby is not an extra income, but a hobby business might be. So, so if you take that route, I'm living here like what has helped people in this process is to have mentorship, masterminds that are aligned in the type of business or business that you have. For instance, it's very different if you are in the industry of paint than if you are in the industry of creating an online training, or if you are in the business of doing something with clothes, or you know. So it's better to have a mentorship, masterminds on your specific type, so that you can really know how it's best to move there without falling into just marketing things, and like what is the most peaceful for you and for the people that you are in the end of the day serving with your work, your creations. Um, for the practical part, legal aspects, all these things. Check the Small Business Administration of, and especially for the Oregon region. I'm gonna submit the PDFs of this training, so you can find the link here. The Chambers of Commerce and similar for business management itself. Always, always, always separate, like, if differentiate your personal money from the business money. That's the first thing that we need to do, especially when the things get serious, um, because we need to start also organized in those type of approaches, organize the time so that we have to decide if this is going to be the main activity that we are going to do, or part-time, or it's just a hobby time, or how it's going to work in that sense. Start learning what happens with taxes, what happens with the legal part, so for a lot of time it's going to be a lot of organization and understanding what is the strategy moving forward. So for all this part, it's also important that you start registering what are the income and expenses related to this activity, and how are you going to separate this money for the sake of your own peace and management, and really see all the aspects, like the way that you do it, the mindset part, the know-how part, but also the legal part, the practical part, the technical part, and and create your strategy. Uh, and if you at some point really wanna make a business not an extra income but your main source of income, then it's super important that you have transition savings. This, I don't know if you have heard that it's suggested that we have for emergency, like the whole full emergency fund, um, 3 to 6 months of income, of basic income. But if you are fully getting, for instance, moving from a job to a business thing, maybe you want to save a year of basic income or basic needs, and all these things that we were talking, before you jump to something that is going to put you in a variable income, and that you can actually prevent the anxiety related to that. Uh, you can also use support like Google, ChatGPT, or experts, and experts to understand the legal aspects, the tax implications, all these things. So take it easy, let the plant grow, but this is another way that we can consider. So that's it for today. So what are your key takeaways? What did you learn today that you didn't know? You can talk, put in the chat, however you feel. And if you are seeing this recorded, put it in the comments of the video as well.
I was aware of quite a bit that's here. My thing is putting the stuff into action. So, like I told you, well,
Okay.
I appreciate the session. Thank you. Very informative. I like the tools that you shared out. I will access the digital link at a later time, but I appreciate this. Thank you.
Awesome. Hope to see you in another live session or in the recordings. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
See
Have a
you.
good week.
Bye. You too.
Bye.